Denji has been cut in half, swallowed by a devil, and locked inside a hotel floor that loops forever. He walked away from all of it. The thing that could actually ruin his life is bread going up by $2. Everything he has ever wanted comes with a price tag on it. He doesn't want power, or a legacy, or anyone's respect. He wants bread with jam, a bed, and enough money that eating stops being a decision he has to make. The rule for devils in this series makes the idea worse rather than sillier. A devil's strength comes from how badly people fear the thing it's named after, and nothing in that rule says a devil has to be violent or dramatic, or even visible. An inflation devil would qualify the moment enough people started checking prices twice. Most of the devils Denji fights are born from fears that are sharp and immediate, like guns or darkness or heights. Inflation doesn't feel anything like that. It feels like a slow irritation you complain about at the till, and it still reaches further than any of them. You don't need to understand monetary policy to be afraid of it, because the experience arrives already explained. The money in your pocket used to be enough, and now it isn't. That gives this devil something the others don't have. A fear that renews itself every time you buy anything at all. The gun devil needs a massacre to stay terrifying. This one only needs a receipt. The fear feeds the devil pushes prices, and the loop closes on itself, with every round of panic making the next one easier to produce. At full strength, it wouldn't have to fight anybody. It could walk into a supermarket, stand near the bread for a while, and let the country do the screaming on its behalf. The simplest version of its power is price manipulation, which works as a gag but is far too polite for this series. Let's say instead that anything it stands near gets more expensive the longer it stays. An apple costs $5, then $50 while Denji is still deciding, then $500 by the time he reaches for it. The nastier ability wouldn't touch the shelves at all. It would work on the money itself. Denji could be holding $100, feel wealthy for the first time in his life, and watch that same 100 quietly stop meaning anything while it sits in his hand. Nobody would have taken it from him, which is somehow worse, because there's nothing to chase and nobody to cut. At the far end, you get hyperinflation, where prices climb so fast that money turns back into paper, and breakfast costs 10 times what it did the previous morning. That's where the comparison gets bleak. Every other devil in the story wants Denji's body, and this one would happily let him keep it, as long as he can't afford to feed it. Someone with savings can absorb rising prices for a while, adjusting slowly and complaining about it at dinner. Denji has never had a buffer in his life. When food gets more expensive, he doesn't lose a bit of comfort. He loses the life he's been assembling out of scraps, which is a very efficient way of making a fight personal. He also has no financial instincts to fall back on. This is a guy who can improvise a plan mid-fight with a chainsaw coming out of his face, and would still sign something catastrophic in exchange for a hot meal and somewhere warm to sleep. His usual approach doesn't transfer either. Cutting the devil apart only removes the body, while the concept stays exactly where it was, waiting for the next round of panic to rebuild it. He could win that fight every single week and still lose ground, and the closest he'd come to understanding the problem is noticing that this one never stays dead. There's one ability in the series that changes the shape of all this, and it belongs to the thing living in Denji's chest. When the chainsaw devil eats another devil, the concept goes with it, and the name disappears from the world and from everyone's memory at the same time. That's how this story ends up with a history where certain diseases and certain wars simply never happened. Picture Denji finally getting close enough, and instead of another temporary kill, Pochita eats it. Prices stop climbing. His money keeps meaning tomorrow what it meant today. And the kid who sold his organs to a loan shark has somehow won an argument with the global economy. The trouble is that inflation isn't an object sitting in a warehouse somewhere, waiting to be eaten. It's the general level of prices rising over time. So removing it doesn't hand you a world of cheap food. It hands you a world where prices have stopped moving in one particular direction, and that turns out to be a much stranger place to live. Central banks don't aim for zero, and that isn't an oversight or a failure of nerve. They aim for something low and predictable, because a little steady inflation gives wages and prices and debts the room to adjust without the whole system seizing up. Push past zero and the opposite problem starts, with prices falling month after month while everyone behaves accordingly. You delay the purchase because next month is cheaper. A company delays the new equipment for exactly the same reason, and anybody carrying debt watches it grow heavier while their income shrinks underneath it. The cheaper bread arrives right on schedule, and the job that paid for the bread doesn't. Denji would understand none of this, and he'd be perfectly happy about it. From where he's standing, a sandwich costs less than it used to, and the world has finally started behaving. He'd never once connected to the fact that his own pay had been quietly following the prices down. Makima spends the entire first part of the story trying to remake the world through control. She has a plan, a government behind her, and a very precise idea of which parts of human experience deserve to keep existing. She doesn't get it, and the version of world-altering power that actually lands belongs to a teenager who got annoyed that food kept getting more expensive. That's the panel I'd want to see. It isn't the fight. It's the afternoon afterwards, with Denji sitting on a curb eating something he could suddenly afford. He has just become the most consequential economic policymaker in human history, and he has no idea. He wouldn't have a word for what he did. He'd only know that bread got cheap, and that for once, nobody had to explain to him why he couldn't have any.